Welcome back to another episode of Mind Your Rehab. I'm Dr. Allison, and this is
Dr. Vinny.
We got Frankie here, who is just hesitating to come on the couch, and he might have just decided not to after minutes of trying to do nothing other than come closer. And now Baloo, we got the dogs doing
The
stuff.
dogs are with us, and they are making podcasting easier.
So what's going on with you?
Oh, man, I want to say we had so much fun on Friday. We went and saw...
No, that was Thursday, right?
No, it was Friday.
No,
Was it Thursday? Oh, man, it was Thursday. That's right. Nope, the day doesn't matter. But we went to the local theater, and they showed Pink Flamingos on 35 millimeter.
My God.
And it was amazing. I think it was the first NC-17 movie that I've actually seen in a movie theater.
It's the first one I've ever seen, and it's right to be X-rated, I will say.
It's not X-rated, it's NC-17.
Whatever, NC-17. I just think of them as the same. But yeah, that was it is not for everybody.
Definitely not for everybody.
Honestly, it is. So I'll say this. There's a scene in it that really fucked me up. It was kind of towards the beginning. And I didn't think that I'd be able to enjoy the rest of the movie because it really fucked me up.
You were distraught.
And then the movie is so good that it pulls you out of it and you just laugh the entire time.
It was so funny. It was so much fun.
So fun. And so the director of this is John Waters, and John Waters is known for Hairspray, Crybaby.
Crybaby was the first movie I saw.
Then there were others, but like he is an icon in the gay community, and he works with drag queens, and the star of this movie is a drag queen, Divine, and
R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. And my God, what what a piece of cinema.
So much fun.
It is, I think when we were walking back home, I was like, that was the most chaotic, most insane movie I have ever seen. And it was so good.
It was from 1972, I think.
Or 1979?
No, it was early 70s. And it was cool because we had like some behind the scenes stuff, and like after the credits, there was a lot of fun stuff. And one of them was the trailer that they showed for the movie when it was coming out in theaters. And, in the 70s, it was just people saying the exact same thing that we're saying right now, how it was just chaotic, amazing, insane, off the walls.
But seriously, like, this is not for everybody. And if you want to know why, you can just DM me or something and ask me why, because I'm not going to talk about it on here.
Yeah, this was inappropriate to talk about on the podcast, and I'm really glad that I had to bring it up because I had to. It was just phenomenal.
Yeah,
it was fucking phenomenal.
It was really great. Yeah, our local theater does awesome. They always put on 35 millimeter,
which makes my soul happy.
And and it's it's cheap. They have really like they always do signature cocktails. Like it's a whole thing. And there were 2 drag queens that hosted this event, which was fun.
They did a drag performance afterwards.
Yeah. They did do a lip sync competition with people who were there.
And you signed up for it.
I did. I signed up. It took me minutes of going back and forth with Vinny, me feeling like I was going to have a heart attack. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to go. I knew exactly what song I wanted to do, which was Baby Got Back by Sir Mix-a-Lot, because I know every fucking word. And what?
No.
And so I went to
Great
go
song.
sign up. And she was like, oh, so choose from this list. I was like, oh, I can't. I'm literally only going to do it if there's this one song. And I'm just going to warn you, this is a very anticlimactic story. So I wanted to do just the one song. She signed me up for it. And then it got cut off. Like I didn't get called. They were pretty much done. And just the drag queen was performing.
Doing their performance.
But the woman came up to me afterwards and she was like, just because you came up and signed up, like, here's a free movie ticket. That's really nice.
You step out of your comfort zone and you get rewarded, even though it wasn't as scary as it seemed like it was going to be.
It was. I didn't get to do it.
Yeah. Well, it could have been scary.
I was just worried because there were people that went up that I'm sure they knew the words to a song and that they signed up for. And then by the time it came time to perform, it looked like every single one of them forgot every single word.
Mhm.
And I was like, that's going to be what happens to me. But I knew once I got comfortable, I'd be able to do it. So anyway, I was disappointed, but at the same time, I got a free movie.
I mean, I was really proud of you for even going up and signing up for it, because I know your teeth were chattering.
Oh,
so
yeah.
much about it.
Yeah, I was signing up. I felt myself so anxious that I said to the woman, I was like, if you can't fit me on, it's 100% okay because I feel like I'm going to throw up everywhere right now. And she was like, no, we'll get you on. And as I was waiting to sign up, I could feel my heart racing. And I was like, okay, everything's fine. Just breathe. Just breathe. And then my teeth started chattering. It was like the more I was trying to calm myself down, the more physiologically out of control my body became. And yeah, that's going to be interesting for my competition.
Yeah, that's what we were saying. It was great, a great little tester there, or
Yeah.
a great
Not
little
that I'm gonna
dose
be
of
lip-syncing,
what's
but
going to
still.
be going on for your
For anyone
bodybuilding
who's
competition.
watching on YouTube, you can see my new heels. I am wearing them right now. They're insane.
Crazy seeing you in heels.
I put them on. I got home. They were here. I put them on. I cooked my food in them. I've been like trotting around the house for the last few minutes. I feel like a giant.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
about
you're
as tall as
4
Vinny.
inches taller
Yeah,
than
these
you
are
normally
4-inch
are.
heels. And yeah, I thought after my ankle I would never be able to wear heels again. And here's another milestone that I've hit.
Truly.
4-inch heels.
Yeah.
So these are rhinestoned. They're rhinestone to the gods, as the queens would say. Yeah, pretty good.
Yep, you're in heels.
Yeah. So I think that, yeah, I've also, this is very boring, but I've been binging a Bravo show called Summer House. I'm on season 6, so don't give me any spoilers, but there's 10 seasons and I've just been plowing through. I have a very, very kind husband who's been letting me watch more than you know, probably the average husband would let a wife take over a TV.
Well, we realized too, like, you need to, right, you're getting closer to your show, so you're cutting more, you're jumping on the exercise bike and stuff, and I know that it's good motivation for you to do something that you don't want to do if that's on the TV in the background.
I know,
so.
but you also let me just do it when I'm rotting, so
Yeah, you're allowed to rot. We work hard. You're allowed to rot.
yeah, so thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, time to move on to the topic.
Yeah, we're moving on to the topic. I've had a couple of phone calls in the last couple of days where people have gone to another clinician before. They've done physical therapy, or they're currently seeing a chiropractor, and they're still reaching out to us because they know that they need something more than what they're currently getting.
Yeah, because like I think a good example that you ask is like, okay, so you've already done PT.
Yeah.
Why not go back to them?
Yeah, exactly that. And I usually get an answer that's like, well, they were great, but it's like, okay, great means like you like them as people, so that's good, I guess.
Yeah.
But then I know that they're not focusing on the functional aspect of things, or they're not allowing me to, or they're not
Like the
getting
whole
me
picture.
closer to the goal that I want to hit.
Yeah.
Right. Like somebody today, he wants to get back to lifting weights, and he does like Olympic lifts, he does powerlifting movements, and he feels fine doing some of them from the PT that he's gotten, but now he's reached that point in his care where they tell him, they give him the sheet of exercises, and he goes off to the side and does the sheet of exercises. And he said to me, he's like, I have a home gym. Like, I could just do this stuff at home. I don't need to keep going there to do the same exercises over and over again. And I'm looking for someone who's going to take a deeper look at what's going on with my mechanics specifically. So I think that that's something that we definitely do in the clinic. You definitely do when you're working with people one-on-one.
Yeah, we just see historically, like, excuse me, I keep clearing my throat. I had a weird lunch before this. But anyway, we both have seen a lot of people where they have that same story of like, I've been to PT, they were great, or I've been to chiro, they were really great, but blah blah blah. And it's usually that blah 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 is like, I don't feel like it's challenging enough. It's not like I could do all this shit at home without guidance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like if you're receiving just a piece of paper or several pieces of paper that have pictures, whether they're two-dimensional characters or they are pictures of people actually doing the exercise, it's likely that that's not going to be, excuse me, it's not going to be challenging enough for you, or yeah, challenging in multiple ways. Like, I mean, for instance, today, you know, whenever I bring people through a foot exercise, whether it's for their hip, their low back, or their actual feet, their knees, there's so much attention that has to be given to how that person is actually using their foot through the exercise.
Yeah.
Like a really good example is clamshells. Clamshells,
When I think
monster
clamshells, I don't think pay attention to what your feet are doing.
Exactly. And so, because most traditionally, when clamshells are prescribed, they're not including your feet at all. It's
Yeah.
just what's called an open chain exercise. So when I say open chain, that it's like an open circuit. There's nothing that's actually creating a closed circuit in your body. So when your feet are not in contact with the ground, you're on your side on the ground and your feet are not in contact with anything, and you're just bringing your knee up and down, that is an open chain exercise. Whereas a clamshell that I give, your feet are on the wall, and how your feet remain in contact with the wall actually dictates the exercise. That's a closed chain exercise. And that's important because we move throughout the world in going between open and closed chain. Like we're, you know,
when we're walking, we're going through an open and a closed chain.
Right. And your feet have to understand how to interact with the ground because your feet have the most nerve endings throughout your body, and it provides incredible feedback for all the joints above it on how to actually move.
Yeah.
So
that's one thing that I was going to say is not enough people. I think it's really funny whenever you're with people in the clinic, right? You're always taking, whether they come to you for a shoulder issue or a foot issue, like you're going to look at their feet and look at how their feet are moving, maybe what strength is going on in their feet, or at the very least, just getting a general understanding of what shapes are being caused in their feet to give you a little bit more hint at some of the biomechanics that are going on. And a lot of that is because just between socks, shoes, concrete, all these different things, we've definitely taken our feet out of the game when it comes to trying to get neurological feedback from them.
And so it's like kind of going back to the initial topic is like if your rehab doesn't include open and closed chain exercises, then it's not really preparing you, because in the gym, most of the leg exercises, not leg extensions, but anytime your foot is in contact with something, so a hack squat, a leg press, Smith machine, hip thrusts, all of these things are closed chain exercises. So squatting, deadlifting, that's all closed chain. So if you're only training open chain exercises in the gym, then you're not going to be able to progress to be able to tolerate, like your capacity isn't going to increase enough to be able to tolerate the activities you want to do.
Yeah, like this guy, right, going back to the beginning, he wants to get back to being able to doing Olympic lifts. He wants to get back to being able to do snatches and clean and jerks, right? Or powerlifting movements, whether it's deadlifting, squat, what have you. And if he's at a PT clinic that's not giving him exercises where his body has to understand how his foot is moving in the ground, or how from the foot to the hip is working in a chain together, then he's definitely going to be limited on the amount that he can grow as a result of that.
Yeah. Today I was working with one of my patients who he has an ongoing hip issue that he's had for a little while. It causes him a lot of pain. He's had like a history of fractures in his low back. He just had a rotator cuff surgery. He's got stuff in a lot of different areas, but the thing that we're working on primarily is the hip pain, which really hurts when he's walking. So he loves golfing. He went to Ireland. He played golf, a lot of golf. There was
Sounds cool.
golfing like two golf games in a row one day. And it's like he was in rough shape by the end of it. And I had only seen him one time prior to this trip. And so this was essentially our second visit. And prior to it, there's a learning curve that you go through in the very beginning of rehab with a patient, because you're learning what they're capable of, what provokes them, what are they good with, how much do you need to regress, how much do you need to progress. So there's a learning curve. And that first session, we focused a lot around the hip itself, and a lot of that was very aggravating for him. And then this week, when I saw him, it was after that trip, and he told me about how much it hurts to walk. It's not even the golf swing, it's walking. And so that information, I was like, well, I evaluated his feet in the beginning. I know that there's issues with his feet. So today, the entire visit was around his feet, and that took away his hip symptoms. None of it aggravated. Actually, what was interesting, this might be a little too into the weeds, but it was like, one part of his foot issue is that he doesn't have enough articulation throughout his feet. So that means that they're just really stiff. And I had his whole foot on the ground while he was doing an exercise to bring his knee forward over his foot and then backward. And just doing that flared up his hip.
Interesting.
And so then I elevated the ball of his big toe, because that's where there's stiffness on him. I elevated that with a wedge, and he was able to do the movement without any issue. There was no pain. So it was very easy to diagnose that, yes, he has a hip problem, but it goes all the way down to the foot and his inability to move through certain ranges of motion throughout his whole chain. And so if he's just doing regular clamshells and stuff like that, he's not going to get any, or maybe it'll help a little bit. Maybe he'll just get strong in clamshells, or maybe traditional PT will help him get out of acute pain. I don't know. He's still in a lot of pain. And, but until you start to actually do things that are more holistic, looking outside of, because there's this whole thing of like, we find the root cause. It's like, yeah, but what does that actually mean? That means that we really are investigating what is the lowest hanging fruit that makes the biggest impact on your situation. And then as that starts to clear up more, then you can become a lot more nuanced in what you're working on. But I think traditional PT doesn't really, they kind of stay in this like general protocol type where it's not individualized for that person.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore it can't be as goal driven.
I'm so curious, when you were with that example of the guy basically moving his knee over his foot, and it causing pain, and then you just elevating the ball of his big toe, and that decreases the pain that's going on. How did you get there in the first place?
That was based off of because I take video throughout my evaluation, so I can always go back to what I found with regards to range of motion and how everything looked. So, and it's also helpful because then I can show them exactly what I'm seeing, and they can be like, oh yeah, I do see what you're talking about, because that helps. They know I'm not lying.
Yeah, if you have a better understanding of what's going on in your own body, it'll help you.
And
That's where you want to go.
When I was evaluating the way his foot pronated, I actually remember the first time I looked at it, I think I thought that he did pronate correctly. And then I watched it back today and I was like, oh, the reason why I elevated it is because I saw that when he would go into that movement where his knee was going over his toes, what's supposed to happen is the ball of your big toe is supposed to drop down to the ground and your arch is supposed to lengthen. The ball of his big toe pushed upward. It went in the opposite direction. So that let me know that he doesn't have great articulation throughout that movement. And so if you raise the ground to it, then it can get better feedback. Sure. Again, going back to the feedback that your feet get, like providing just that surface, it's like, oh, I have a better understanding of how to move through this. So that was why.
And to me, that makes sense that he would have difficulty walking around, not necessarily so much with the golf
Yeah.
swing, but the walking on the golf course would be problematic if, every time he
Is
moves.
supposed to toe off, he can't do it.
Exactly.
So basically what that tells me, for anybody in the audience who actually cares about these nuances or whatever you want to call them, that tells me, and I already knew he had difficulty internally rotating, but that tells me that like starting all the way at his big toe, his body does not understand how to reach internal rotation. So his hip is always kind of just like while his lower leg needs to get into internal rotation, his hip is like, I can't do that. And if you make me do that, I'm going to be really pissed off.
Right.
And so teaching him how to get into those ranges is going to help loosen everything up.
That's cool. So just actively, when his body is moving through space, it doesn't understand that it needs to get into that internal rotation in that lower portion of the leg, and then that moves all the way up the chain to the hip.
Yeah. And it creates a cascade of events of what's called relative motion all the way up. It's like every joint is supposed to move relative to the other joint next to it. And so most of the time when people have pain or chronic pain, there's usually a lack of that. And it's kind of like the joint has just become frozen in space and it's just moving in the same direction together. Like the bone above and below, there's not a whole lot of separation to unlock the joint. I usually call it like an unlocking mechanism. That rotation that happens unlocks the joint to allow it to flex and extend. And essentially a lot of people lose that. So they no longer have that unlocking mechanism and things are just kind of jamming and not moving smoothly or efficiently, therefore.
Yeah. Another thing I think that's really helpful to speak about is when you were initially taking him through the exercise and then it was painful for him, right? It was painful at the knee, you said, when he was, it was
like aggravated his hip issue.
It aggravated his hip issue. I mean, that goes back to what we were saying at the beginning where, you need to do things in order to get uncomfortable a little bit sometimes with your rehab. And that was just great information. The discomfort that he was feeling doesn't mean your foot shouldn't move over your toes like that ever. It just means
you should move over your toes. Yeah.
Yeah. It just means that it means that you need to be able to move over your toes, but then it also means that there's something else that needs to happen to allow that motion to take place.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
pain is just a signal.
Yeah, it's a tool. It's diagnostic. It's not necessarily, hey, don't ever do this again for the rest of your life. It could mean, hey, there's something here that we need to unlock.
Yeah. I know that we kind of like went off on a different path with the conversation, which I think usually happens. Mm-hmm. But to bring it back, when people go to like PT or chiro and then they realize that they need more, it doesn't mean, I feel like I've said this before, it doesn't mean that clinician was like a piece of shit. It just means that like they're not equipped. It's not their specialty to get you further than that.
Right.
And so ideally, other clinicians like me see you from the get-go, but that's more often than not the case. We're usually the last resort.
The last stop, yeah.
But it is common that people will go through their course of rehab and still not be, and that's what we created our online program for, which is limitless athleticism. We've mentioned it before. It's like we literally created it for that reason, because not enough people either have access to this type of rehab near them or they're completely unaware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And and so we wanted to make it more accessible, because people will go into rehab, not get the result that they wanted, and they then can start to think like, oh, I'll never be able to do X, Y, and Z again. It's like, no, you most likely just need better inputs, and something that's actually more goal driven. Even in a group class, a group cohort, you can still have goals and reach those goals in that group setting, even if the program is not specifically tailored to where you want to go. The fact that it is a more holistic approach, it is it really changes the course of, because I, like there are people in our group who one of them's postpartum, has pelvic floor issues. Another person had a broken rib and a shoulder fracture. And then another one had a torn meniscus. And all three of them, totally different injuries, all three of them went through the program the way that they needed to go through the program. And they have improved. And I know one person may have fallen off, but two of the people, the pelvic floor and the shoulder and rib, they are now working out again after thinking that they couldn't anymore.
Yeah.
They're now lifting weights again after thinking that they couldn't. And they've been dealing with this stuff for years and they just didn't get the right inputs.
Yeah.
So it really is just a matter of getting higher level inputs for your body.
And that goes back to what we said at the beginning, right? You need to get there's some discomfort that's required in order for you to grow.
Yeah.
And we've talked in the past about some practitioners not feeling comfortable putting their patients or their clients in positions where discomfort happens.
Yeah, it's like you kind of have to do the risk in order to get the reward. It's like as a provider, I'd be doing them a disservice if I was afraid to provoke anything. I'm not saying that I want to like light them up and get them in 10 out of 10 pain, but like,
no, of course not.
We have to explore movements to see where you're at.
You need to see where your threshold is.
Yeah. And I had a conversation with a new patient the other day, actually, who's been burned a lot in the past. And there's so much fear avoidance because pain comes on. And I had to have a very real conversation with her saying, like, you have to reflect on whether or not you can allow yourself to move through discomfort, because otherwise she is so stiff now because of how afraid she is to move. And that is going to create such a deeper hole to crawl out of. And it has. And so, the expectation is that there will be flare-ups. But again, it shouldn't be like throwing you back into like an acute stage of pain. It's just going to be soreness for a couple of days, and that's okay.
It's part of growing.
Yeah. You just kind of, yeah. And it's hard when you're going through an injury. I mean, I think the people that we started talking about, that they're not in that spot of like fear avoidance. They're in the spot of like, I already did something and I know that I need more. And this is why.
There could be some crossover with it though. I mean, the guy that I spoke to was saying that he actually said to me, I know when I do a barbell squat, I can keep neutral spine and stay upright and everything is good. However, I'm afraid to do deadlifts because I don't feel comfortable bending over.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas that's definitely someone who's kind of in the between.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where, like I was saying to him, it's not realistic to keep that ideal neutral spine maintained all the way throughout life. That's not realistic whatsoever.
It makes sense for the actual movement, like the deadlift, but
Sure.
in order to get down onto the bar, like, kind of need a bend.
Yeah, the
and
joints
then you straighten out your back once you're there.
The joints in your spine move. They should be moving. They should be able to bend in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's that's a whole other conversation. Maybe we'll have that next week about how joints are meant to joint.
Joints are meant to joint.
Joints be jointing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like your low back has to move. It shouldn't be neutral all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's bound for injury.
Yeah.
I don't think that we said anything funny today. I made myself laugh.
All right. Well, at least you did that.
I have to ride the bike again.
Uh-huh.
I got to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll be done exercising for the day.
Nice.
What do you have coming up?
What do I have coming up? I still have to work out today too, so I'm going to get on that because I've been dealing with calls and looking at numbers. So
yeah,
I'm going to finish doing that. I'm going to exercise for a little bit, and then I got to get back to doing that.
Sick.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
Well, have a happy rest of your Tuesday or whenever it is that you're listening to this. And we will be back again next Tuesday.
You'll hear from us next week.
Yeah. And remember to like, subscribe, share, review, anything. Any of those options.
Do all the things that are free that help us.
Yeah, they're free.
Please.
Like us on Instagram. All of this is free. We don't need you to spend money with us, but we do want you to help us. If we're helping you, please feel free to help us. All right.
You know what I was thinking earlier? Maybe I need to create an email for this podcast so that people could type in and ask questions.
Oh, yeah.
That would be a good idea, right?
I know the Handsome podcast that I listen to, they have something called, they use SpeakPipe. And I guess people can just record their questions and stuff like that.
Oh, that's cool.
So we'll look into that.
But for now, if you have questions, reach out to Allison at Dr. Allison Heffron on Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram. Yeah. dr.allison.heffron.
Yeah, do that for now, and then we'll figure out the next step for moving forward.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, see you next week.
Toodles.
Bye.